Hello, this is Hector Vladimir. Today is the 8th of February 2021. As you may know, we're in the middle of a pandemic. The pandemic is raging throughout the world, especially here in the United States, killing many thousands of people daily. Worldwide, here in the United States, a few thousands per day are dying. The situation has been dire for the last few months, to close to over actually a year now. Many have gotten sick. Many have lost their lives, lost their livelihoods, lost their health, their well-being at the very least. And at the very least, many have lost their way of life through losing again health capabilities and financial wealth and all that. It has been a very tough time for many of us. I hope that you and your family and those around you, friends, have been well. If not, wish you the best of luck. Wish you the best of health, of recovery, if you happen to be sick or someone you know happens to be sick. And I do encourage you and hope that you are taking care of yourself and your family and your friends and those around. I want to discuss today how the power system remains and still staunchly persists in abusing and pummeling, pounding on the poor, the meek, the forgotten, the unemployed, the underemployed, the disabled, almost without any concern for human well-being, for human dignity, without any remorse, without any mercy. The economic machine that we live under, whose yoke we live under right now, whose jackboot we dwell under, still grinds on, even during the worst of a worldwide epidemic that's ravaging all kinds of countries, especially here in the Americas. I want to detail how the economic system, especially the power structures, such as your power company, your cable company, your water company, your basic services, such as home mortgage companies, your landlord if you rent, all of those entities are barreling through and crushing all of those unable to pay, unable to keep up, unable to maintain their payments up to date. They will evict you. They will
kick you out into the streets,
if need be. Talking about the mortgage companies and cities and states, governments. They will evict you unless a hero, like hopefully the U.S. government, comes and saves you from them. The power company, let's start with that, since I'm most familiar with that aspect of our economic system, since I've been tracking, following that, and learning about that for years. How the power companies will crush you as far as your
livelihood. It
will squeeze every single penny out of you. So you keep your lights on, keep your heat on, keep your cooling air on, and all of your cooking and
appliances
that maintain you basically going. They will shut those off in a heartbeat, no questions asked, and they'll sleep like babies without even thinking about it, without even flinching. That's how these people operate, the people that operate and run
the power company.
If you don't pay, you will be getting your power shut off, no questions asked. You will be made to pay because it is, in this country, a utter and vast
corrupt monopoly. It is
basically a mandate coming from up top, coming from those up above, the high-ups. Seemingly, their rule comes down on you like thunder, and inexplicably so, because we allow it as a population. We allow our leaders, governments, elected officials to give
the power company
so much power that they act like gods up in the clouds, up above, just throwing lightning bolts at us. That's how they behave. And absolute power will bring absolute corruption. That's no question, no exceptions. And
the power company
is no exception to that. You give them too much power,
there will be abuse.
And abuse there is, my friends. Let me assure you that. Many people I talk to, since I'm in the solar energy business, are desperate, especially right now during this pandemic, where
these
power companies are raising their rates, jacking their prices up, overcharging them. They offer very little. Many times they offer no means to fight back, to complain, to regain lost income or lost funds because of their mistake. And I'll explain
shortly.
Power companies abuse you Because first of all, let's start with that. Let's start with the way they're set up as far as charging you and you paying for their services that you have no choice of switching companies.
A service that them and them alone could offer.
And they charge, according to them, according to legend, they charge you per kilowatt hour that you use. Basically, that's 1,000 watts per hour that you use. They basically break it down into those units. 1 kilowatt hour, 1,000 watts per hour that you use every day. They add up and then they charge you for each kilowatt hour. The rate up and down depending what time of day you use that kilowatt hour. For some odd
reason.
Don't ask me why. They just make it so because, oh yes, they got this algorithm where the power is worth more when a lot of people are using it, so you get penalized for using it when you need it. And
this
never, ever made any sense to me, but that's how they have it set up. And don't complain and don't bring the system down until they fix it. That's how we have allowed it to be set up, so it is partly our fault. The power companies
charge
every kilowatt hour you use. The rates fluctuate, as I mentioned, not only in the time of day, but it also fluctuates in the time of year. So you can hardly keep up. No one that I know, including myself, could keep up with such fluctuations and such algorithms. The mathematics behind that type of stuff is beyond the average person. So, to a little surprise, no one keeps up with such things. So, you basically have no
idea
how much you're supposed to be getting charged because of all of these
fluctuations.
You don't remember
when you used
that 1 kilowatt hour and what time, and you're not looking at your meter
24 hours a day.
So, how can you
possibly complaint?
How can you possibly bring up any evidence that you're
being overcharged?
This is true to my heart.
I
believe that this is somewhat by design. It is somewhat complicated on purpose. So you have a very, very hard time keeping up and even a harder time proving that you are being overcharged. And my friends, I guarantee you that overcharged you are being right this moment. The power companies claim with some validity that to generate power is very, very costly, and it takes a whole city, a whole county, a whole state full of customers to keep the rate at which they charge power down. They claim it is down, but it is down, I'm not sure for what percentage of the population. Maybe the top 10, top 20, top 5%, it is okay. But for the rest of us down here, the 80 to 90% of us that are middle class and below, lower middle, poor, working poor, and people that have nothing, what you are getting charged for power is ridiculously and criminally high. Again, as I mentioned before, you're being charged from 5 to 10 to even 15% of your income, sometimes in many cases higher if you're in the very bottom rung of the economic ladder. You are paying a huge chunk of your monthly income
to the power company.
And with no mercy, you are being charged this every month without fault, like
clockwork.
And you basically have no choice to pay later. Yes, they have their very meager and very hard and very difficult to qualify for programs for poor folks that are entangled in so much red tape and so much difficulty and complexity that people just
throw their hands up,
whether they qualify for it or not, and they just don't
bother.
That's their goal. Their goal is to limit the amount of people that actually try to qualify for these programs, and when you do, you are so harassed and so pressured, pushed around by these people to give information.
Applying and keep messing with paperwork.
And people just let it drop.
And get away from it.
And they'd rather have power. They'd rather just pay a exuberant amount of money for exuberant amount of their income percentage. That is just human nature, and they know it. These power company people know it. They have the funds and the means and the people to study these kind of stuff, and they basically exploit the people that cannot
fight back,
that cannot complain, that cannot take them to court, that cannot prove their case because of their lower means, their desperate situations, etc. So the way that the system is set up for people to pay virtually without question and with very little means to complain. Try to complain to the power company if you have done so, like I have several times. And you will quickly find out that the system is set up for you to just bug off, to just buzz off, to go away, to shut up, and just behave. If you call to complaint about overcharges, the first thing they're going to tell you is that you haven't been overcharged. They'll fight you. They'll try to fight it off whether they have any evidence
or not.
They'll try to tell you it's to you using the power that they're charging you is the right amount of power that you've been using, that you should be the one trying to
save energy.
They'll give you all these little tips of how to save power, how to save energy, and this and that. When in reality, a very good amount of the time, it's not anyone's power usage habits. It's them and their rates and them overcharging
you.
Because I myself have tried to save massive amounts of power, have disconnected all kinds
of appliances. I have
shut off all kinds of air conditioning units for months on end. And guess what? My
power bill
didn't substantially change. It stayed the same in many cases, and in some cases even it went up. I shit you not. And I call
to
tell them about it, and they say the same thing. You should try to cut back
on the
power that you use. You're using the power that we are charging
you.
And, they always, like robots, give you the same story. It's like they're reading from a script. They have been trained and they have been coached
on
how to deal with angry folks, and they'll listen to you many times. Sometimes they'll hang up. Sometimes, depending who it is, they'll tell you that they're going to read your meter again. Then they hardly ever show up. Then they read your meter again and is all confused because they don't really read the meter. They just charge you a flat fee according to what the average folk uses in your area. They may read your meter once or twice every year to see what you're averaging at. Basically throw your numbers in the whole bunch. I mean, it is as clear as day that this is what they're doing. They average it out. And I want to say they have even confessed to this. They have even admitted this, that to keep the power rates down, they need everyone chipping in, paying in. This is a type of communal sharing of the pot. Everyone chips in and everyone gets a little bit of power. And in the process, some may overpay, some may underpay, especially the rich and powerful. I believe wholeheartedly that they are underpaying because they are the biggest power hogs. They have the biggest homes, and I guarantee you they do not pay the same percentage as the smaller homes, especially the middle class homes, the working class, and the working poor people's homes. When I say percentage, the percentage is different from the amount, right? When you have a home, a household that brings in $2,000 every month, and they pay $200 every month out of that check, they're paying 10% of their income to the power company. And when you have a rich person's home bringing in, let's say, $10,000 in 1 month, which is very common for higher income folks, and they pay, let's say they pay $500 out of those $10,000, that's only 5% of their income for that month. So they're sticking it to the little guy big time. Because that big home, that huge home with many, many acres of land and many power-hungry devices and stuff inside is only paying twice as much as the very little small person, while their income is about 5 times as large as the little person, the poor person. So the little guy is getting the shafts, let me put it that way, big time. And rich folks are not. That is one reason why I believe that there is a very large disparity and economic injustice between rich and poor in damn near every community, every city, every state. Another way that the power company is abusing you is because if you don't pay, you don't play. If you don't pay, your power is coming off. And guess what? You are mandated to have that power on, or your house runs the risk and will most likely be considered uninhabitable by the city, by the county. So, in effect, you are by law obligated to have and pay for power. You cannot just say, no, I'm sorry, I can't pay for it. Shut it off. I'll live without it. No, your place of dwelling somehow is considered
uninhabitable
without power. That is whether you have gas, that is whether you have other means of survival. It is just written in the books in many communities throughout the nation that you must have power for a dwelling to be livable. A dwelling could be considered uninhabitable and condemned. Basically, you run the risk of being evicted kicked out into the street if your home has no electricity, if you have no power, and if you're not keeping up paying the power company. How much sense does that make to anyone with half a brain, where the governments rather have you in the streets, you and your family, kids and all, than have you in a home without electricity because you cannot afford it, because you feel like the power company is taking advantage of you, taking you for a ride.
The power company
Is abusing you, using you, and pulling you around. And the city and state, the county government, whatever it is that looks over your property, rather side with power company and team up with them, high five, and gang up against you and boot you out of the house to teach everyone around you a lesson and to use you as a scapegoat
and
as an
example,
and to show everyone that they must pay or suffer the consequences. That is despotism at its
best.
If that is not modern day slavery, I don't know what is. When the city and state and county governments collude to basically make
you
pay for your power. I don't care
if it's
$250, $300, $350, $400, $450. I've seen people pay for their power, and this is people of low income, low to lower middle income. I'm not even talking about people with money paying this much for their power. That is a huge percentage of their income
just
flushed down the toilet for power. Yes, power is a service that costs money, but it's nowhere near what most people are being charged
for.
I guarantee it. And life goes on with the system that we live under, and people seem just to be fine with that. If you've never received a very high power bill and be pissed off about it and complaints, even though you are taking measures to save energy, you don't know how that feels. Become a working adult here in the United States and you will quickly find out. If you haven't experienced that, it's because you're either underage, living under someone else's paycheck, or you are retired, disabled, you have some sort of income from the government that pays for it. You are lucky enough to live in
an arrangement where you don't have to
worry about that. But if you are one of the 80 to 90% of working households, you will experience this. And unless you're again on the top 10 to 20% of the population that
they spend only about
5-3% of their income, or even less in some instances, if you make millions, for example, per year, $1 million and up, paying $1,000 a month is nothing to you. Paying $800, $750 a month is nothing to you. It is very low, perhaps 0.5%, 1% of your monthly income. It is
potatoes to you.
So if you're one of those that is getting charged 10% and up, you feel the pain, you feel the pinch.